My friends, this is the story of a woman who walks alone, not because she wants to, but because people never stayed, not the family, not the friends, not the ones who promised they'd never leave. She sat in silence where laughter used to be. She celebrated victories with no one clapping. She cried on birthdays no one remembered. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. God doesn't need a crowd to call you. In fact, he waits until the room is empty, so you can finally hear him speak. See, when everyone leaves, God steps in, and when the world rejects you, heaven pays attention. That woman, quiet, overlooked, misunderstood, is exactly the kind of person God chooses. You want to know why? Because strength is built in the silence, faith is forged in the fire, and purpose is born in the pit, not the palace. She didn't have anyone to tell her who she was. So God told her himself, "You are mine, you are enough, you are chosen." The woman with no friends learned to walk without applause, to love without conditions, to give without guarantees, and that is power. That is divine preparation, because when you stop needing people to believe in you, you become dangerous to the darkness. And now she walks with a quiet fire. Her steps are heavy with purpose. She smiles, not because life is easy, but because she knows who walks beside her. So if you feel forgotten, if you feel like no one sees you, let me tell you something. God sees you. God chooses you. God is not looking for popular. He's looking for pure. He's not impressed by platforms. He's moved by pain, and sometimes the loneliest people carry the loudest call. A woman with no friends isn't forsaken. She's being prepared. She's been chosen. And when she rises, the world will wonder where she came from. But heaven already knows. There is a pattern, a rhythm, to the way God works. And often that rhythm begins not in public triumph, but in private isolation. Before God lifts someone, he removes them. Before he gives them a platform, he gives them a wilderness. It is not punishment. It is preparation. When a woman finds herself alone, without the comfort of friendships, without the warmth of support, without the validation of others, it can feel like something is wrong. It can feel like abandonment, but it may not be rejection at all. It may be selection, because before elevation comes isolation. That space of being alone is not just empty. It's sacred. It's the classroom of the called. It's where God strips away the noise of people's opinions, the distractions of comparison, and the weight of expectations that were never hers to carry in the first place. In isolation, there's no one to perform for, no one to impress, no one to edit yourself around, and that's exactly why it's powerful. That's when God begins to show her who she really is, not who the world wanted her to be, not who people expected her to be, but who he made her to be. God is a master builder, and every great structure begins with excavation. The deeper the foundation, the higher the building can rise. So when it feels like your life is being dug out, when the ground is falling beneath you, when everything feels like it's being taken, understand that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of it. Because when God isolates, he's digging. He's going deep. He's getting you ready to carry more than you thought possible. You look at the lives of those who were called, truly called, and you'll find a period of isolation. Moses was in the desert for 40 years. David was in the field with sheep. Joseph was thrown into a pit, then into a prison. Even Jesus went into the wilderness before his ministry began. Isolation isn't the sign you've been forgotten. It's often the evidence that you've been marked. God is setting you apart before he sets you in place, and that process doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to. Growth stretches you. Transformation requires breaking, and being set apart means you won't fit in, not because you're not worthy, but because your assignment is different. The people around you may not understand it. They may fall away, not out of malice, but because they're not meant to walk where you're going. They're not built for the burden you're about to carry. And sometimes it's not just that God removes them. It's that he closes your heart to them. He creates distance where there used to be connection. And it's painful, but it's purposeful. In isolation, God speaks things to you that you couldn't hear in a crowd. He reveals things that would have been drowned out by applause. He pours into you not just inspiration, but instruction. And it's in those lonely moments that he teaches you to trust him, not people, to seek him, not validation, to find your strength in him, not popularity. This is not weakness. This is refinement. Fire doesn't destroy gold. It purifies it. And isolation is that fire. It burns away every crutch, every idol, every dependency you didn't know you had. It leaves you raw, honest, real, but it also leaves you ready. Because when the time comes, when the doors open, when the stage is set and the elevation arrives, you will not be the same person who entered that season of isolation. You'll be sharper, stronger, quieter maybe, but more powerful. More certain, more anchored in identity. You won't be easily shaken. You won't be easily swayed. You'll know who called you. You'll know why you were chosen. And that knowing won't come from a crowd. It'll come from the solitude where God met you, where he molded you, where he made you. There is something sacred about silence. It's not just the absence of sound, it's the absence of noise. The kind of noise that clouds your mind and keeps you distracted. The kind of noise that tells you who you should be, what you should want, how you should live. In a world constantly shouting, constantly performing, constantly comparing, silence becomes a rare and uncomfortable space. But it is in that very discomfort where something divine begins to stir. When everything goes quiet, that's when the truth begins to rise. That's when the voice of God, which has been drowned out by busyness and background chatter, finally gets heard. Not because he wasn't speaking, but because you finally became still enough to listen. Purpose doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It waits for stillness. It waits for surrender. It waits for the moment when you stop asking everyone else who you are and start asking the one who made you. Silence can feel empty, but it is full of questions, full of clarity, full of things that couldn't make their way into your spirit until the distractions were stripped away. Sometimes life forces you into that silence, through heartbreak, loss, betrayal, or isolation. And other times, God calls you into it. He leads you away from the crowd, away from comfort, into a quiet place, not to punish you, but to prepare you, because when everything is loud, you can miss the call. When your calendar is full, your soul can be starving. When you're constantly surrounded by voices, opinions, and approval, your true identity gets buried under layers of performance. But silence removes the mask. It puts a mirror in front of you. It asks questions that can't be ignored. Who are you when no one's watching? What do you believe when no one's feeding you answers? What do you want when no one's telling you what to chase? In that silence, something begins to shift. You start to hear echoes of dreams you abandoned. You remember whispers of passions you silenced because life got too loud. You begin to see what matters, not just what's popular. You start to sense that you were made for something more, not because someone told you, but because something inside you knows it. That knowing doesn't come from applause. It comes from alignment, and alignment happens when the noise stops. Silence gives space for revelation, the kind of revelation that doesn't just inform you. It transforms you. Purpose isn't a random decision. It's a discovery, and discovery takes time. It takes stillness. It takes the willingness to stop running long enough to realize you've been running in circles. It takes courage to sit in the silence, to feel the weight of uncertainty, and trust that something meaningful is forming in the unseen. Many people fear silence because they equate it with absence, but the silence of God is not his absence. It is often his nearness. He speaks in whispers, and whispers require closeness. When life quiets down, when the friends disappear, when the noise fades, that's when his presence becomes unmistakable. That's when you begin to understand that your purpose was never tied to how loud your life was, but how deeply you were willing to listen. There are things God will only reveal in silence, instructions that only make sense when the world is paused, assignments that only become clear when you're no longer trying to impress or outpace anyone. He doesn't rush purpose, he cultivates it, he hides it in stillness, he protects it with silence, and only when you're ready, only when your ears are tuned to his frequency, does he begin to unfold it. In silence, faith becomes real. It's no longer borrowed, no longer tied to someone else's experience. It's yours. It's built in the moments where you questioned, waited, wrestled, and still chose to stay, chose to listen, chose to believe. That kind of faith doesn't make headlines, but it makes history. Because when you come out of silence with clarity, there's nothing the world can say that will shake you. You've heard the voice that matters, you've seen what's unseen, and you carry a purpose that was revealed not in a spotlight, but in a whisper. Rejection is one of the most painful human experiences. It stings, it lingers, and it leaves questions behind. Why did they walk away? Why wasn't I chosen? Why didn't it work out? When a woman is rejected, whether by people, opportunities, relationships, or systems, it can feel like a sign of unworthiness, like something about her wasn't enough, like she failed some invisible test she didn't even know she was taking. But what feels like rejection from the world is often redirection from God. It's not the closing of a door because she was unworthy to enter. It's the hand of God turning her toward a different path. A higher one, a path that others can't see and she didn't expect. God doesn't always explain himself in the moment. He doesn't always offer comfort when the pain first hits. Sometimes all you're left with is silence and a door that won't open. But over time, if you pay attention, you'll see the pattern. You'll see how what didn't happen was just as important as what did. You'll recognize that the places where you weren't accepted were the same places that would have kept you small. That relationship you wanted so badly, it would have distracted you. That job that slipped through your fingers, it would have drained you. That friendship that turned cold, it would have limited your growth. What felt like loss was actually protection. Divine redirection rarely comes with explanation. It comes with disruption. And disruption doesn't feel holy at first, it feels cruel. But there is a sacredness in the rearranging of your life. When rejection happens, it forces you to pause, to reassess, to turn inward and upward. It strips away false attachments and demands that you anchor your identity in something deeper, something unshakable. Not in people, not in positions, not in approval, but in God. That's why God often uses rejection not to break you, but to build you. He allows the wrong people to walk away so the right calling can walk in. He lets the wrong doors close so the right ones won't be missed. Not everything you want is meant for where you're going, and not everyone you lose was meant to stay. Some connections are seasonal, some opportunities are tests, and some no's are the greatest acts of mercy. Redirection is a divine rerouting. It takes what you thought was the plan and shifts it. It confuses your timing but preserves your purpose. It interrupts your expectations so God can fulfill his intention. Because your calling is too important to be buried under comfort, too sacred to be compromised by the opinions of others, too big to fit into spaces that were never built to hold you. When a woman experiences repeated rejection, it's easy for her to question her worth, to internalize the no's, to start believing that maybe she's not called, not capable, not chosen. But in the kingdom of God, rejection is not a verdict. It's a vehicle. It's a means by which God moves you into alignment. It's his way of removing what would hinder you before it has the chance to hold you back. You didn't lose favor. You were redirected by grace. God sees the full picture. He knows the weight of your assignment. He knows what you'll need in 5 years, not just what you want today. So when he says no, it's not punishment, it's precision, it's divine strategy. It's him positioning you for something greater than you imagine. And that greatness rarely comes without the pain of letting go. Rejection is also a refining fire. It exposes what you rely on. If your confidence was in approval, rejection will crush it. If your identity was in validation, rejection will shake it. But that shaking is necessary, because what remains after the shaking is what's real, what's solid, what's ready. You don't truly know who you are until the applause stops, the doors close, and the people leave. And when you come out of that season still believing, still standing, still pressing forward, then you know your calling isn't borrowed, it's rooted, it's real. So many of the people used by God in powerful ways were first rejected by others, overlooked, underestimated, dismissed, but that didn't stop them. It shaped them. It redirected them. It pushed them into places they would have never chosen on their own, and those places became sacred ground, not because they were glamorous, but because they were prepared by God for his purpose. There is a quiet kind of strength, one that doesn't need to be seen to be real. It's the kind that grows in the shadows, develops in the silence, and proves itself in private. This strength isn't loud, and it isn't flashy. It doesn't show up on stages or seek out validation. It's built in the moments when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is saying, "You're doing great." This kind of strength is raw, authentic, and deeply rooted. When a woman walks through seasons of life without applause, she is walking through sacred ground. That silence isn't failure, it's formation. It's the place where dependence on recognition is stripped away and the need for validation dies. That's where strength becomes pure. It's not about being acknowledged, it's about becoming unshakable. And that only happens when the lights are off, when the crowd is gone, and when the work is done in secret. In a culture obsessed with performance and visibility, building strength in private feels unnatural. The world teaches that if no one sees it, it doesn't matter, but God teaches something different. He develops people in the unseen. He forms character where there's no audience. He watches when no one else is looking. And it's in those quiet spaces, when a woman keeps showing up despite the silence, that her true strength begins to take shape. There are no trophies for perseverance in isolation, no medals for holding on when everything is falling apart, no standing ovation for choosing integrity when it would be easier to compromise. But those choices, those quiet victories, are where the strongest foundation is laid. The woman who keeps going without encouragement is the woman who cannot be stopped, because her strength doesn't come from applause, it comes from purpose, it comes from conviction, it comes from knowing that even if no one claps, what she's building matters. Strength built without applause is honest, it's not motivated by who's watching, it's not driven by image or ego, it's born out of survival, out of grit, out of a decision to rise when it would be easier to stay down. And that strength is durable. It can withstand storms. It doesn't crumble under pressure because it wasn't built for approval. It was built for impact. When applause stops, most people stop. But the woman who keeps moving forward in the silence, who keeps pushing through rejection, delay, loneliness, and failure, that woman is unstoppable. She's not chasing attention. She's following calling. She's not waiting to be seen. She's choosing to be faithful, and that kind of strength can't be taught. It has to be lived. It has to be earned through seasons that break you down and build you back up, not in public, but in private. The strongest women are often the ones no one noticed while they were being forged, the ones who cried behind closed doors, who prayed when no one believed, who trained when no one cared, who chose obedience when there was no reward in sight. Their strength didn't come in a moment. It came over time, one lonely decision at a time, one invisible act of courage at a time. Applause feels good, but it's temporary, it fades, it changes. One day people love you, the next they don't. If your strength is built on applause, it will collapse when the crowd leaves. But if your strength is built in the quiet, in the secret place, it will endure. It will carry you through seasons when no one understands your journey. It will sustain you when the path gets hard and the weight gets heavy. There's a reason why God often builds people in the dark, because that's where they learn to hear Him clearly. That's where they learn to obey without praise. That's where they grow roots deep enough to hold them up when elevation finally comes. You can always tell the difference between someone who was built by applause and someone who was built without it. One performs under pressure, the other stands firm. Strength without applause is not weakness. It's the evidence of something deeper, something unshakable. It means the woman has learned to lead herself, to believe without proof, to press forward without support. It means she's not waiting to be empowered. She knows she already is. That kind of strength isn't popular, but it's powerful. It doesn't entertain, it transforms.